Gold Coast. Are you ready for this? Hey, and welcome to the channel. My name is Arhan, I'm the real estate nerd. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about everything to do with the Gold Coast. So this is going to be a part of the Friday series where every Friday I'm going to be talking about real estate and things in relation to the Gold Coast, what the market's doing over here, but also other general things about real estate that you might not know. So strap in, let me know what you think, and hope you enjoy this one. So for today's video, I'm going to break it up into three different parts. First, I want to talk a little bit about the geographical positioning of the Gold Coast. Part 2 will cover a little bit of the population demographics of the Gold Coast. And part 3 will cover a little bit of the economic profile about the Gold Coast. The reason I discuss all of these things is because I find all of these things actually affect the real estate market in general, because obviously the population dynamics affect the sort of supply and demand issues, and the economic profile affects all the pricing side of issues. If you understand population demographics, you'll also understand a better sentiment of the buyer and the seller and what sort of trends the real estate market is going to go towards. Now, aside from that, obviously the economics of a city will also help dictate the pricing of properties in the city. What areas are more in demand, what areas are less in demand, what are considered high-end areas, what are considered mid-range, what are considered starter areas. So this video is going to break all of those things down about the Gold Coast. Part 1, let's start with the geographical context about the Gold Coast. So the Gold Coast is around 1,334 square kilometers in size. Now, it's also considered a regional city, but I wouldn't necessarily classify as a regional town. Even though it's not a capital city, Gold Coast still boasts a population of 647,000 odd people, which is a pretty sizable number when you look at all the different things that it has to offer. Aside from that, the Gold Coast also starts all the way at the bottom from Coolangatta, along the New South Wales border, and extends further north up to Yatala, so bordering into Brisbane territory with Logan. Towards the west, it is bordered by the Mount Tamborine and those sort of regions, but it extends towards Maudslin, Mount Nathan, and Advancetown is probably the furthest west it goes. Along the eastern front of Gold Coast, you've got all the beachfront suburbs that are commonly well known, like Surfers Paradise, Broad Beach, Main Beach, and all of those areas. Now, aside from the sprawling space that the Gold Coast occupies, it is home to some of the best beaches in the world, such as Surfers Paradise, Broad Beach, Main Beach, Tullabudra Creek, Currumbin Valley. It is amazing to visit some of these locations. The waters are crystal clear, the sand is stunning white. It's warm throughout the most of the year, where you can, even during winter periods, you can go into the water, as it is quite a beautiful climate. I'm currently filming this coming into winter, and it is still a beautiful 25 odd degrees. So geographically, where Gold Coast is located, we experience good weather most of the year round. Incremental changes in weather where during winter months or during the monsoon season, where we might experience heavy rains from time to time. But aside from that, the Gold Coast weather stays relatively stable all year round, which is a big draw factor for a lot of immigration, tourism, and interstate movement that are relocating the Gold Coast, which I will actually break down in the population section of this video, because there was a massive change over the COVID period about the different population trends. But in terms of geographics, Gold Coast is not only home to some of the best beaches in the world, but also some fantastic nature reserves, waterfalls, and the hinterlands. A vast, sprawling Australian outback where you can go through the bush and experience an enormous amount of wildlife and thick, lush rainforest, beautiful waterfalls, lakes, rivers, the Hinds Dam. Amazing places to go visit, for not just for yourself, but even family-friendly places. That's a little bit about the geography of the Gold Coast. Now, aside from that, let's dive into the population demographics of the Gold Coast. As I mentioned previously, the population of the Gold Coast is around 647,000 people as of 2022. Now, this number will surely change by the time we end 2023. Looking at the previous census data between 2016 and 2021, the last census period, Gold Coast experienced a population boom of about 2.3% annually each year. So 2.3% increase in population. Now, during the 2021 to 2022 period, however, it jumped from 2.3 to 3.6. That's a 1.3% rise, which meant another 26,000 people immigrated to the Gold Coast in that 1 year time frame. Now, the largest population increase, the largest demographic increase of that population was actually seniors. So people over the age of 65 were the largest group of people that relocated to the Gold Coast. Around 5,000 more seniors located to the Gold Coast than any other demographic of the Gold Coast. Out of that 647,000 odd population, the Gold Coast has around 33,500 babies. That means kids under the age of 5. Now, we also have around 97,000 school-age children, so school children between the ages of 5 to 17/18 who are bordering into adulthood. We have around 346,000 working-age adults, which is made up of 18 to 65-year-olds, and then about another 150,000 seniors who are over the age of 65 and retirees. So that gives you a little bit of the population breakdown. Now, the largest group of individuals in the working age category are actually aged between 35 and 50. Now, that's a really important fact for me to know in real estate, especially because typically that is the age where most people have either bought a house or are looking to experiencing a lot of family changes and are looking to upsize or downsize, or change things around a little bit, relocate, move around. According to the ABS and the Gold Coast City Council, they're also classified as home builders as well. So as you know, between the ages of 35 to 50 is typically when most people start accumulating wealth through the property portfolio. So that's a demographic that I would definitely look at. And there's around 120,000 people aged between 35 and 50. That's a pretty decent number of people for me to possibly have a connection with over the ongoing period. Now, aside from that, there's around 250,000 homes in the Gold Coast. So as a real estate agent, that is exciting to me because that means there's 243,000 opportunities for me to possibly be able to sell a house. You are considering a career in real estate and you think it's tough. It can be. But the other thing I also have to factor in is Gold Coast per capita has the highest amount of agents out of anywhere else in this country, including places like Sydney and Melbourne. So on a day-to-day basis, I am out there competing with 45,000 agents, and yet I see next to none of them producing this kind of content that hopefully helps to inform you out there if you're looking to move to the Gold Coast or wanting to know a little bit more about the city. There's around 45,000 agents, 240,000 homes in the Gold Coast. However, we are still experiencing a housing crisis in Gold Coast and a rental crisis in Gold Coast. Part of the reason is we're expecting an extra 27,000 people to move to the Gold Coast between 2022 and 2023. But what's interesting is Gold Coast, being in Queensland, only state to experience a downfall in population during the last census. Every single other state gained immigration and gained more residents, and Queensland on an average actually lost people. However, post-COVID, so post-2021, we have seen a massive increase in immigration towards Queensland and the Gold Coast. So if you're a resident over here, you can expect property prices to stay relatively stable in the Gold Coast, primarily because of that reason. So that's why the Gold Coast market differs to the market in Brisbane, because while Queensland was losing population and Brisbane was losing population, Gold Coast was gaining at a very steady and rapid rate. Being a tourist hub of Australia, it does have a lot of draw cards and it offers a unique lifestyle that not a lot of other cities in Australia can offer. So if you're a renter out there, it's probably going to keep getting tougher until more housing is developed. In terms of social housing, it is very difficult to find land that is cost effective for the government to be able to justify building or spending that much money into social housing in certain areas. As Gold Coast is a very premium city, on average, the Gold Coast median house price is sitting around the $1.2 million mark, which is quite astronomical when you think about the population. However, you can get into properties in the Gold Coast ranging all the way from $300,000 even in today's market. The cheapest property that I've seen been sold in the Gold Coast in the last 3 months was granted it was a unit, but if I look at a home, so if you're looking at a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home with around 600 square meters of land within the Gold Coast region, you still can get in for around $400,000 as a starting price, and that was sold as recently as within the last 3 months. However, the Gold Coast market is relatively stable. I don't foresee a massive decline aside from the ultra luxury premium ranges, as the number of buyers that are available for premium luxury homes is harder to achieve at this point due to the tie down and locking in of immigration for now. Once immigration kicks into full force, we will see a rise in demand for luxury homes again, I foresee. That's a little bit about the population trends. In terms of the ethnic breakdowns, 407,000 residents at the Gold Coast identify as Australian and are Australian citizens. There's around 181,000 residents in the Gold Coast who are overseas citizens and are not currently citizens of Australia or have Australian descent, out of which the largest immigration to the Gold Coast has actually occurred from New Zealand, followed by the United Kingdom and several other countries, which I can post this image over here. As you can see, there's multiple different countries where populations are migrating from. However, predicted for 2023 and going forward over the next 3 to 5 years, the largest immigration trend is said to be from New Zealand, India and Brazil. In terms of religions and language, Gold Coast is a very predominantly secular city where 2/3 of its population doesn't identify with any sort of religion, but about a third, so around 247,000 people in the Gold Coast do identify as Christian and the different sects of Christianity. Now, outside of that, there are small outliers of Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam. In terms of languages spoken, Gold Coast is a very unilateral city where the predominant language spoken is English. So 507,000 residents of Gold Coast predominantly only speak English. Aside from that, the most commonly spoken languages in Gold Coast that you can find are Mandarin, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, and Spanish. However, I think that might change over time as the immigration changes and more people from, let's say, India migrate over, and Hindi and Punjabi and some of the other Indian languages begin to make more of a presence. Let's talk a little bit about the economic profile of the Gold Coast. So the Gold Coast has an annual GDP of around $40.98 billion. So Gold Coast actually contributes about 10% of Queensland's revenue. So for one city to contribute 10% of Queensland overall revenue for a regional city, technically speaking, is quite an astonishing feat. Now, there's a lot of development and expansion coming to the Gold Coast, especially when it comes to construction and film. Construction and film are the two fastest growing sectors in the Gold Coast at this point in time. Just between 2019 and 2022, an extra 7,600 businesses opened their doors for trading, with the majority of them being in construction. The largest industry, however, to work in the Gold Coast for was actually healthcare and social assistance. Healthcare and social assistance is by far dominating the workspace in all of Gold Coast. Now, I'll attach this image over here, which will actually tell you a lot about the different sectors of the Gold Coast. Maybe if you're looking for a change in career, there are a lot of opportunities in the Gold Coast for work and for starting a business. It is sort of an entrepreneurial hub in Queensland as well. Now, in terms of where Gold Coast price points sit, you have properties that range anywhere from multi-million-dollar homes to your starter homes around the $500,000 mark. In saying that, where I did a little bit of research into some of the most highly mortgaged areas of the Gold Coast, and while the luxury areas, so the ultra luxury areas, there's a small cross section along the Nerang River made up of Broadbeach Waters, Benowa Waters, and Clearwater Bundle, sorry. It's a cross section of about 10 streets where 75% of the residents are considered high-income earners. 75% of the population in that small little cross section earns over $162,000 individually. Now, there are plenty of other suburbs such as Miami, Sovereign Island, Hope Island, Main Beach, Burleigh Heads, Wurundjeri, Benoggin, Reedy Creek, Tallabudgera Valley, where there's a concentration of high-income earners. Further out towards the north, you also have people in Maudsley and Pimpama. Around 30% of the residents in those areas are actually earning over $160,000 individually as well. Now, where are the big population hubs? Well, the most densely populated area on the Gold Coast is actually Mermaid Waters, Miami, and Burleigh Beach. So these are the three most densely populated areas in the Gold Coast. However, in close proximity to those areas, we also have suburbs such as Ashmore, Parkwood, Carrara, Mollendina, Labrador, Southport, Varsity Lakes, Robina, Upper Coomera, and Coomera as some of the other big population hubs of the Gold Coast. So if you're a business owner out there and you're looking for population hubs, these are the suburbs to target because that's where the largest concentration of people are. Now, in terms of the least densely populated areas, actually further towards the hinterlands, so suburbs such as Wurundjeri, Talai, Madraba, Tallabudgera Creek, and Tallabudgera Valley, and Currumbin Valley are some of the least populated areas of the Gold Coast, as a lot of the land and a lot of the dwellings over there are situated on large acreage blocks which have a smaller per capita occupied space. Now, in terms of the average salaries in the Gold Coast, now this is an interesting fact. The median wage in the Gold Coast is actually $79,000. The most common way for people to earn a living in the Gold Coast is actually through a wage. So it's through working a regular job. While there are 76,000 businesses located in the Gold Coast as of 2022, majority of the population, so 339,000 of the population, actually works in jobs. Now that is a very interesting number because 339,000 people are employed within the Gold Coast. So if you look at the working age bracket of between 18 to 65-year-olds who are considered working age adults, that population group was 346,000. So currently there is an unemployment of around 5,000 people in the Gold Coast region. That was a little snapshot about the Gold Coast region and the Gold Coast property market. If you like what you see here today, please follow along. Every Friday I'm going to be talking a little bit about real estate and the Gold Coast real estate market in general. And aside from that, every Monday I release a mindset motivation video where I talk about having the right mindset. And every Wednesday I recap my journey that I'm taking as a person who's moved to the Gold Coast and building my real estate career from scratch once again. But if you like what you see, please click that subscribe button, ring the bell notification, and leave a little like and a comment in the video. It helps the YouTube algorithm boost my videos. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next one.